Imagine being abandoned, left with newborn pups only for fate to bring you face to face with the very king who cast you aside. What shocking secrets will unravel when a chance encounter forces an unexpected reunion, testing the limits of family and revealing a hidden past? The Lycan king abandons his mate with newborn pups. Years later, they accidentally meet again.
Chapter 1. The Moon's Blessing. The night began with a roar of drums. Silver light spilled over the palace of Moonfang, washing its marble towers in the glow of 1,000 torches. The air itself seemed to hum, alive, waiting. Then, from the great hall, a voice rose above the noise. "The moon has spoken," whispered the oracle, her eyes white as frost. "A child of moonfire shall be born, one who will unite fang and flame." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some bowed, others trembled. Yet in the center of it all stood King Kaelin, tall and fierce, his dark hair catching the torchlight like a storm cloud crowned in silver. Beside him, Era, his newly mated Luna, shone softer, moon to his fire, her gown whispering across the marble floor as if woven from light itself. As the oracle's words faded, Kaelin reached for Era's hand. His palm was warm, calloused from battles fought to claim the throne. "Did you hear that?" he murmured, his voice breaking into a grin. "Our child will change everything." Era laughed, though her heart fluttered like a trapped bird. "A prophecy is a heavy gift, my king. What if the moon expects more than we can give?" "Then we give it anyway," he said simply. "Together." The word together echoed like a vow. Outside, wolves howled, a chorus of loyalty and warning. The wind carried the sound through open arches, wrapping around Era's shoulders. Beneath that haunting melody, she felt something deeper, ancient magic stirring under her skin. Her wolf shifted restlessly, sensing fate already spinning its web. Still, she smiled. Hope tasted sweet on her tongue. Chapter 2. A King's Dream. Come morning, sunlight poured through the high windows, scattering gold over tangled sheets and quiet laughter. Kaelin had barely slept. Instead, he traced patterns on Era's skin, talking about the future as though he could carve it with words. "A boy," he said, half dreaming. "Strong, fearless. He'll bear my mark and rule beside me." Era rolled toward him, brushing her fingers against his chest. "And if it's a girl?" He paused, just long enough for her to notice. "Then she'll rule anyway," he replied, though his tone carried the weight of something unspoken. That was Kaelin, part tenderness, part pride. He was the Lycan king who'd united warring clans through sheer will, yet inside him lived a man terrified of losing control. Power had always come easily. Trust did not. While the palace prepared for a week of celebration, Kaelin's thoughts turned inward. He imagined his child running through the training grounds, a small shadow beneath the banners. He imagined teaching them how to fight, how to lead, how to command. Because of that dream, he ordered the royal nursery built overnight. Walls painted with constellations, silver cradles forged from the same metal as his armor. Era watched, amused and worried all at once. "You act as if our pup will arrive tomorrow." He smiled. "Maybe I just can't wait to meet the piece of you that fate's giving me." Her heart softened, and for a moment she forgot the prophecy's weight. The kingdom laughed, feasted, danced beneath lanterns shaped like moons. Yet somewhere beyond those golden walls, whispers had already begun. "Too much love blinds a king," someone murmured in the shadows. "And blind kings fall the hardest." The wind carried that warning straight through the open balcony. Era shivered but said nothing. Chapter 3. Shadows in the Light. That night, the council gathered in the marble chamber, a ring of old wolves cloaked in fur and suspicion. The scent of smoke and sage clung to the air. Kaelin entered hand in hand with Ira, but the warmth between them cooled beneath the weight of so many judging eyes. "Majesty," began Lord Draven, the eldest advisor, his tone smooth as oil. "Prophecies bless and bind. A child of Moonfire may unite the packs, or burn them. Kaelin's jaw tightened. You doubt the moon's word? Not the moon, Draven said, but men twist destiny for power. You of all should guard your heart. Love makes rulers foolish. Ira stepped forward. Then may he be the most foolish ruler alive, she said softly, her voice steady but her pulse racing. For love is what keeps a king from becoming a monster. Silence cut through the hall. For a heartbeat, even the torches seemed to lean closer. Kaelin's gaze softened. He reached for her hand again, unashamed. The Luna speaks truth, he declared. Let it be known. The prophecy is not a threat, but a promise. Our heir will bring balance, not ruin. Yet as they turned to leave, Draven's words followed them like a shadow. Balance demands sacrifice, my king, and fate always collects its debt. Outside, the moon was brighter than before. Too bright. It painted everything in silver fire, the towers, the gardens, even Kaelin's armor. Ira stared up at it, her heart heavy despite the beauty. Maybe it was fate. She didn't know what scared her more, the thought of losing Kaelin or the feeling that destiny was already choosing which of them it would take first. As the wind shifted, wolves howled again. The sound no longer felt like celebration. It sounded like a warning. And just like that, everything changed. Chapter 4. The Collapse. The music stopped before anyone understood why. 1 second, laughter filled the grand hall. 100 wolves drinking and dancing beneath chandeliers that dripped with moonlight. And the next, a sound shattered through it. A gasp, a glass hitting the marble floor. Then Era's voice, low and trembling. Kaelin. Her fingers slipped from the goblet she'd been holding, crimson wine spilling across the silver table like blood. For an instant, she swayed, blinking as if the world itself tilted. Kaelin was halfway across the room before anyone else moved. Era! His voice cut through the chaos. Her body crumpled against him, light as silk, her hands clutching her belly. The scent of fear hit him, sharp, metallic. Not hers. His. The hall erupted into motion. Healers rushed forward. Guards cleared the space. Kaelin held her close, heart hammering, every muscle in his body locked between strength and helplessness. It's too soon, one of the healers hissed, pale as parchment. She's only 28 weeks. Then fix it, Kaelin roared, his voice echoing against stone. Outside, thunder split the sky. Rain hammered against the stained glass windows. The storm felt alive, as if the heavens themselves were mourning. They carried Era to the birthing chamber, Kaelin at her side every step, refusing to let go. The air was thick with sage and fear. Every breath burned. Her eyes found his. Don't leave me, she whispered. He brushed the hair from her damp forehead. Never. But even as he said it, lightning flashed, and something inside him faltered, an old superstition clawing its way up from the dark corners of his mind. The moon had promised one heir. Why, then, did he feel so wrong? As thunder rolled over the castle, Era's cry broke the air, a sound of pain, defiance, and desperate life. And deep down, Kaelin knew nothing would ever be the same again. Moments later, the storm gave birth to something far more powerful than fear. Chapter 5. 3 Cries in the Night. The chamber flickered with candlelight and panic. Healers whispered prayers to the moon between gasps and shouts. The scent of blood and lavender filled the air. She's strong! Keep her breathing! The first pup is crowning! Kaelin stood frozen at the foot of the bed, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles went white. Every instinct screamed to protect her, to fight something, anything. But there was no enemy to strike, only destiny itself. Era's voice was hoarse but determined. Kaelin, look at me. He met her eyes, and for one terrifying heartbeat, he saw both strength and surrender there. Then, a cry. tiny, sharp, alive. "It's a boy," one of the healers announced, breathless. Kalen's chest collapsed with relief. A boy. His heir. The prophecy fulfilled. But before he could even reach for Era's hand, another voice called out, shocked. "Wait! There's another!" Confusion cut through him like a blade. "Another what?" "Another pup! Gods above, there's two!" The room froze. For a moment, no one breathed. Then came another cry, smaller, softer. Era sobbed with joy and exhaustion. "Twins, Kalen! Twins!" But the healers didn't stop moving. Their eyes widened. One of them bent forward, voice trembling. "My lord, there's one more." Kalen's mind went blank. That's impossible. The air turned electric, heavy with something he couldn't name. The third cry tore through the storm outside, louder than thunder, stronger than the others. It filled the entire chamber with sound. 3 cries. The room was silent afterward. Even the healers stood motionless, eyes flicking toward the king as if waiting for his command, or his wrath. Era reached for her pups, tears streaking her cheeks. 3. "Kalen, look at them." He did, and something inside him shifted. 3 tiny forms lay swaddled in silver cloth. 2 boys, 1 girl, each with a faint glow beneath their skin, the mark of moonfire. The prophecy made flesh. And yet, fear twisted in Kalen's gut. No Lycan king had ever sired more than 1 heir at a time. Legends said such births brought division, madness, and war. He stepped closer, every breath heavier than the last. "Era, this shouldn't be possible." "They're our children," she whispered. "That's all that matters." Her words should have steadied him. Instead, they tore him open. Because of that truth, he couldn't look away and couldn't breathe. Outside, lightning struck the castle spire. The sound was deafening. It felt like an omen. In that moment, Kalen smiled for the sake of his people, but inside, a single thought echoed like thunder. 3 heirs, 3 paths, 3 ways to lose everything. Chapter 6. The King's Fear. The palace was eerily quiet the next morning. Rain still fell, thin and cold, dripping from the balcony where Kalen stood. His reflection stared back from the wet marble, a king with bloodshot eyes and shaking hands. Inside, Era slept, pale and beautiful, her body exhausted but her heart full. The pups lay beside her in their cradle, each one breathing softly, tiny chests rising and falling in rhythm with the storm. Kalen turned when he heard the door creak. Lord Draven entered, bowing low. "Congratulations, my king. 3 blessings from the moon herself." The tone was wrong, too careful, too measured. Kalen didn't turn back. "Say what you really mean." Draven hesitated, then spoke slowly. "The realm whispers already. They say the prophecy spoke of 1 heir, not 3. They question if this is divine favor or divine confusion." Kalen's jaw clenched. "They're my children." "Of course," Draven said smoothly. "But too many heirs invite competition. You cannot divide a kingdom into thirds. Even the moon chooses 1 ruler at a time." The words dug deep. Kalen said nothing. Draven stepped closer. "You have ruled with power, Majesty. Do not let love make you weak. The packs follow you because you are decisive. Do not let them see hesitation now." When he left, Kalen remained still. Stone, shadow, silence. The rain had turned to sleet. He watched it strike the balcony rail, the sound like tiny knives. Too many heirs. Divided kingdom. Weak king. The thoughts clawed at him until they became truth. He turned to look at Era again. She stirred in her sleep, smiling faintly, unaware of the storm growing behind his eyes. He wanted to hold her, to promise her everything would be all right. But he couldn't. Because of that whisper in his mind, Draven's poison or perhaps his own, Kaelin felt something inside him split. He touched the cradle. 3 faces, 3 fragile lives. He loved them. He feared them. And that was the beginning of the end. When the dawn finally broke, the storm had cleared. But inside the Lycan king, it had only just begun. Chapter 7, Whispers of Doubt. The castle no longer felt like home. The once lively halls of Moonfang had grown colder, quieter, as if the very stones had begun to listen. Every corner seemed to hide a whisper, and every whisper carried the same poison. The pups are not his. Kaelin heard it everywhere. At breakfast, in the training yards, even in the hush of the council chamber where loyalty was supposed to live. The prophecy spoke of one heir, murmured Lord Draven, his tone silk over steel. Yet 3 were born. You must ask yourself, Majesty, does the moon ever make mistakes? Kaelin's fists clenched beneath the table. The moon doesn't err. Men do. Perhaps, Draven replied smoothly. But when prophecy bends, it's because someone forced its hand. Tell me, my king, did you ever wonder why the pups came so early? The words lodged deep, twisting. He tried to ignore them, tried to remind himself of Era's laughter, her courage. But doubt is a slow poison. It doesn't strike all at once. It seeps. That night, Kaelin walked alone through the corridors, the sound of his boots echoing like thunder. The scent of herbs drifted from the nursery. Inside, Era was humming softly, rocking one of the pups. Her hair fell loose over her shoulders, golden against the firelight. She looked up, smiling. They're stronger tonight. The healers say they might shift early, like their father. Her words should have filled him with pride. Instead, something inside him cracked. The pups were small, fragile, too quiet. And somewhere deep down, the whisper returned. No pureblood Lycan births 3. No true heir is this week. Kaelin? Her voice softened. What's wrong? He forced a smile. Nothing. I'm just tired. But she saw it, the distance in his eyes, the shadow forming behind his gaze. As the silence stretched, thunder rolled again outside. Era's heart ached, though she didn't know why. He turned to leave, and in that moment, his reflection caught in the window. A king draped in power, already haunted by the choice he hadn't made yet. And just like that, love began to lose to fear. Chapter 8. The farewell that wasn't before dawn, the palace was still. Fog rolled across the courtyard like a ghostly sea. Kaelin stood at the gates with his horse saddled and his armor half worn, neither warrior nor husband, but something in between. Ronan, his loyal beta, waited beside him. Majesty, he said quietly. Are you certain? The Luna won't understand. Kaelin's jaw tightened. She will. I'll return before the next moon. Does she know you're leaving? His silence was answer enough. Ronan exhaled, the air misting between them. If you go now, she'll wake to an empty bed. You'll break her. Kaelin's throat tightened. I can't stay, Ronan. The pups, there's something wrong. They're too weak, too quiet. The council says I must find a cure. For them, for the kingdom. But the words rang hollow even to him. Because of that lie, he could almost believe he was doing the right thing. Ronan lowered his gaze. You're not leaving to save them, my king. You're leaving because you're afraid of what they mean. Kaelin froze. Watch your tongue. I've served you since we were boys, Ronan said softly, and I've never seen you afraid of anything except love. The words struck deeper than any blade. Kaelin turned away, gripping the reins so tightly his hands shook. He wanted to scream, to run back to Ira, to hold her one last time. But he didn't. Instead, he whispered, almost to himself, Tell her I'll return. Tell her the moon called me. Then, without warning, he mounted his horse. The gates creaked open, cold wind rushing through like a sigh. The last sound Ronan heard as the king rode into the mist was not hooves but heartbreak. Inside the palace, Era stirred in her sleep, hand reaching toward the empty space beside her. She felt it before she knew it. The bond pulsed once, and then fell silent. Chapter 9. The Empty Palace. The sun rose without warmth. By the time Era opened her eyes, the world already felt wrong. The sheets were cold, the chamber quiet. No scent of Kaelin's presence, only the faint trace of rain and steel. Her heart skipped. Kaelin? No answer. She pushed herself up, ignoring the ache in her body. The cradle beside her bed was empty, the pups already with the nursemaids. The silence pressed down like a weight. Still half-dressed, she hurried through the corridors, barefoot on marble. The guards avoided her eyes. The servants bowed too low. "Where is the king?" she demanded. No one spoke. Not until Ronan appeared at the end of the hall, his expression carved from stone. "Where is he, Ronan?" He swallowed hard. "He left before dawn, my lady. Said it was for the healers, to find help." Era's chest tightened. "Without me? Without even a word?" "I tried to stop him," Ronan whispered. "He wouldn't listen." The world spun. She braced against the wall, every breath sharp as glass. He swore he'd never leave. The bond between them pulsed faintly, like a dying heartbeat. She felt his absence echo through her veins, and in that echo was the truth. He wasn't coming back. Outside, the flags of Moonfang snapped in the cold wind. Inside, the cradle still rocked where a servant had brushed against it. 3 small blankets, neatly folded. 3 lives waiting for a father who would never return. That night, Era sat alone beside the fire, her eyes fixed on the door. The pups slept quietly in her arms, their warmth the only thing keeping her from breaking. She didn't weep, not yet. Because of that silence, she could pretend a little longer. Pretend he'd walk through the door. Pretend love could survive cowardice. But when the candles burned out, she whispered the truth into the dark. The king of Moonfang is gone. And in that moment, the Luna of the realm became something else entirely. A mother, a survivor, a queen without a crown, but not without strength. Because even when love abandons you, destiny never does. Chapter 10. Flight through the pines. The moon hid behind clouds the night Era fled. The forest loomed ahead, dark, endless, and whispering with snow. Every step crunched beneath her boots, every breath turned to mist in the freezing air. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Because behind her lay Moonfang Palace, and the ghosts of everything she had lost. In her arms, 3 small bundles stirred, tiny whimpers, soft warmth against her chest. Her pups, her reason, her heart, her defiance. Wind howled through the pines like wolves in mourning. The storm stung her skin, yet she pressed forward, cloak clutched tight around the infants. Her body ached, still frail from childbirth, but determination burned hotter than pain. "Just a little farther," she whispered, voice breaking. "We'll be safe soon, I promise." But even as she spoke, she heard it, the distant echo of howls. The royal guard. They were tracking her scent. Era's pulse raced. The council would not let the Luna vanish with royal heirs. If they found her, they'd take the children, raise them as pawns, or worse. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, urging her on. Snow lashed her face, but she didn't slow. The scent of pine sap filled the air, sharp and alive. Somewhere far ahead, the river roared, a sign she was nearing the borders. Her legs trembled. The smallest pup cried softly. She pressed a kiss to his forehead. "Hush, my love, you mustn't make a sound." Lightning flashed through the forest canopy, turning the snow to silver for just an instant. In that flash, she saw movement, shadows, fast and silent, closing in. Era ducked behind a fallen log, clutching the pups to her chest. Her breath came quick and shallow. The guards' footsteps thundered past, their torches slicing through the dark. "Find her," one snarled. The council wants proof the pups still live. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought they might hear it, but the wind covered her scent, and the storm swallowed her fear. Moments later, silence returned. She waited, 10 breaths, 20, before rising again. By the time she reached the riverbank, dawn was breaking, faint gold bleeding into the snow. Era fell to her knees beside the icy current, tears freezing on her cheeks. She looked toward the distant mountains, whispering to the wind, "If the moon still watches me, guide me now." And in that moment, a single sunbeam broke through the clouds, soft, warm, and real. It struck the path ahead, revealing a narrow trail that disappeared into the woods. Era's wolf rose, steady and sure. She followed. Because of that choice, the Luna of Moonfang ceased to be a queen and became a survivor. Chapter 11. A Warrior's Oath. The trail wound north for days. Hunger gnawed at Era's stomach. Exhaustion clawed at her bones, yet she refused to stop. The pups grew restless, their small cries slicing through the silence of the forest. She built a shelter beneath the roots of an ancient pine, its trunk hollow and warm enough to keep the wind at bay. There, for the first time since fleeing the palace, she allowed herself to breathe. Snowflakes drifted down, landing on her lashes. The forest hummed quietly, alive with unseen life. Era held her pups close, humming the lullaby Kaelin once sang on their wedding night. Her voice cracked, but she sang anyway. Then, a sound broke the stillness. Footsteps. Heavy. Familiar. Her heart leapt to her throat. She grabbed the small dagger strapped to her thigh, muscles tense. "Show yourself!" she hissed, standing between her children and the sound. A shadow emerged from the trees. Broad shoulders, silver armor dulled by snow. Ronan. Era's grip faltered, disbelief flooding her. "You followed me?" He nodded once. "I swore to protect my king's family. He may have forgotten that vow, but I haven't." Her voice wavered. "The council will brand you a traitor." "Let them," he said simply. "I'd rather betray a crown than betray my conscience." The words struck something deep inside her, a flicker of hope she hadn't felt in weeks. Still, pride made her harden. "I don't need your pity, Ronan." "It's not pity, my lady," he replied softly. "It's loyalty." They stood in silence for a moment, snow falling between them like ash. Then Ira turned away, her arms tightening around her pups. "If you stay as protector, not as servant. We answer to no one now." Ronan bowed his head. "Then I serve you, Luna, until my last breath." The oath hung heavy in the cold air, and for the first time since the night she fled, Era didn't feel alone. That night, she and Ronan built a fire together. The light danced across his face, carving the worry lines that battle and betrayal had etched there. "Do you ever think he'll come for us?" she asked quietly. Ronan stared into the flames. "I used to. Now I think fate chose differently." Era's chest ached. She looked down at her sleeping pups. Then fate will learn who it left behind. Chapter 12. The Hidden Haven. Seasons passed like whispered secrets. The northern woods became their home, a vast, untouched wilderness where snow met sky and wolves hunted free. Era learned to survive, to fight, to live again. She hunted with her wolf, swift and silent. She learned to heal wounds with herbs, to build traps, to track the stars for direction. Because of that strength, her children grew fearless. The oldest boy, Ryan, had his father's eyes, silver like stormlight. The second, Corin, carried her calm but hid mischief in every grin. And the youngest, Lyra, their only daughter, was wild as wind, born to challenge destiny itself. Ronan trained the boys at dawn, teaching them to move through snow without leaving prints, to fight with claws and heart alike. Era watched, pride swelling like warmth in the cold. At night, they gathered around the fire. The children listened wide-eyed as Ronan told tales of Moonfang, of kings and battles, of honor and loss. He never spoke Kaelin's name, but his silence said enough. Sometimes, when the fire burned low and the forest grew still, Era would walk alone to the cliff's edge. From there, she could see the distant lights of the kingdom she once ruled. They looked small now, distant. Her breath misted in the air. "Do you see us, Kaelin?" she whispered. "Do you even remember what you left behind?" The wind didn't answer, but the moon did. A faint glow touched the trees, painting her in silver once more. She smiled, just barely, because even if no one else saw her, the moon did. And that was enough. Back at the fire, her children laughed, bright and loud, chasing each other through the snow. The sound echoed through the woods like a promise. The Luna of Moonfang had fallen, but a mother had risen in her place, and while the world forgot her name, the forest never did. Chapter 13. The Messenger's Secret. It began with a letter that wasn't supposed to exist. Ronan found it at dusk while tracking game near the frozen ridge. A raven lay in the snow, its wings stiff, a broken seal clutched in its talons, the royal crest of Moonfang. The parchment was damp, the ink smeared, but the words, they were clear enough to shatter him. "My beloved Kaelin, the pups grow stronger. I named them for the stars we once watched together. Please, answer me. Tell me this silence isn't forever. Era." Ronan's breath caught. The letter was old, at least a decade, yet the pain inside it still burned fresh. He turned the envelope over and found something worse. A second seal, that of the High Council. They'd read it. They'd never delivered it. The realization hit like a blade. All those nights, Era had wept beside the fire, whispering, "Maybe he never got my letters." She'd been right. He raced back through the woods, snow spraying beneath his boots. The fire crackled when he burst into the clearing. Era looked up, startled, her children mid-spar at Ronan's earlier command. "What happened?" she asked, rising. He held out the crumpled parchment. "You need to see this." She took it, eyes scanning the familiar handwriting, her own. The world went still. "Where did you find this?" she whispered. "Carried by a raven marked for the king," Ronan said, voice low. "Intercepted, hidden. The council never sent them, Era. Not one." Her knees almost gave out. She sank to the ground, clutching the letter to her chest. "I wrote him every full moon, for years. I thought he ignored me. I thought—" The words broke. Tears slid down her face and hissed in the fire. Ronan knelt beside her. "They lied to both of you." In the silence that followed, the flames snapped and spat as if echoing her rage. She stared into the fire until its reflection burned in her eyes. "If they took my voice," she whispered, "then I'll make sure they hear me scream." The wind howled through the pines, carrying her vow like smoke into the night. Chapter 14. Lies of the Throne. By morning, the truth had turned to fury. Ronan stood across from Era, tension tight between them like a drawn bow. "You should know everything," he said finally. "Not just about the letters." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were dangerous. "Then tell me." He hesitated. "The council told the king you were unfaithful." The words landed like an arrow to her chest. "What?" "They said the pups weren't his," Ronan continued, guilt twisting every syllable. "That you laid with a soldier while he was away at war. They showed him forged letters, made it look as if you'd confessed. He didn't question them." Era's breath hitched. The room blurred. "So he believed them. He believed them over me." "I tried to reach him," Ronan said. "He wouldn't listen. The council had their claws deep in him. They feared your children. 3 heirs meant divided rule. They needed him to doubt you." She turned away, gripping the edge of the table to keep from shaking. All these years, all that pain, because of a lie. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Her wolf stirred, furious and awake. "They stole my mate," she whispered. "They stole my family, and they made him their puppet." Ronan's voice softened. "Era, revenge won't change what happened." She spun toward him, eyes bright with unshed tears. "It's not revenge, it's justice." Outside, snow fell softly, innocent, unaware. But inside the cabin, the air crackled like lightning. Era's rage wasn't loud. It was quiet, controlled, terrifying. She looked down at her children training in the snow, their laughter sharp and wild. "When the time comes," she murmured, "I'll tell them the truth. About their father, about what was stolen from us." Ronan met her gaze. "And if fate brings you face to face with the king again?" Her lips curved. Not in a smile, but something colder. "Then fate will finally get what it deserves." Chapter 15. The Vow for Truth. That night, the fire burned brighter than ever. Era sat before it, the flames dancing across her face. The pups, not so little anymore, slept nearby, curled together under thick furs. Their breathing filled the silence between crackles of wood. Ronan approached quietly, his cloak dusted with frost. "You should rest," he said. "You've been awake since dawn." "I can't," she replied, eyes never leaving the flames. "My whole life changed because of men who lied, and a man who believed them." He sat across from her, watching her expression shift between grief and resolve. "What will you do?" Her voice trembled, but the words were iron. "When the moon calls me back, I'll go to him. Not as his mate, but as the woman he abandoned. He will see the truth. About me, about them, about what his silence cost." Ronan studied her quietly. "And if he doesn't listen?" "Then the world will," she said simply. Her gaze lifted to the night sky beyond the window. The moon hung there, full, luminous, watching. Its light spilled across her face, painting her skin silver. "You once blessed us," she whispered to the heavens. "Now bless my fury. Let my truth be heard." Outside, the wind picked up, swirling the snow into spirals. Her wolf stirred beneath her skin, its growl low, ancient, and ready. She felt it, clear as day, the shift from sorrow to strength. Ronan bowed his head. "Then I'll follow you, Luna, wherever this path leads." Era's eyes softened for the first time in days. "Then we walk it together." She reached into the chest beside the fire and drew out a small locket, the last gift Kaelin had ever given her. Inside, his portrait stared back, young and proud. Her thumb brushed over it once before she snapped it shut. "The next time he sees me," she said quietly, "it will be as the mother of the children he forgot, and the woman who will not bow." The fire roared, sparks leaping high as if the moon herself answered her vow. And just like that, the Luna of Moonfang stopped waiting for forgiveness and began preparing for war. Chapter 16. The Alliance Summit. The Palace of Silvergrove shimmered beneath the morning sun, all marble, banners, and pride. Every kingdom of the Lycan realms gathered there once a year for the Alliance Summit, a spectacle of diplomacy, rivalry, and veiled threats disguised as smiles. And among the gathered nobles, a single name whispered through the halls like mist. Lady Mira of the Northern Woods, healer, scholar, survivor. No one knew she was once Era of Moonfang. No one except Ronan. She walked through the great hall with quiet grace, her gown the color of twilight and her silver hair braided with moonstones. The crowd parted as she passed, murmuring admiration. Her aura was calm, poised, but inside her heart thrummed with nerves. She'd been invited to share her healing knowledge, unaware that fate had prepared something far crueler. "The King of Moonfang is expected to arrive at dusk," said Ronan softly, his tone cautious as they paused near the marble staircase. Era looked up from her satchel of scrolls, frowning. Kalen? Yes, Ronan replied. He's hosting this year's summit. Her hand froze mid-motion. The sound of her name, his name, after 12 years, still carried power. Her stomach twisted, but she steadied her breath. I didn't come here for him, she said quietly. I came to heal. Ronan inclined his head. Then let him see what he broke and what you became. By the time night fell, the banquet began. Golden chandeliers glowed overhead, casting warmth over a sea of nobles. Musicians played soft strings as laughter echoed through the chamber. Era sat at the edge of the gathering, her children beside her, Ryan, Corin, and Lyra, now strong, tall, and radiant, with the kind of quiet pride only truth could forge. Their scent marked them as Lycans, but no one suspected royal blood. Not yet. Era smiled faintly at their chatter, pretending calm. But inside, a storm gathered, a memory she had buried, now stirring under moonlight. She didn't know that at that very moment, Kalen of Moonfang was descending the palace stairs, and destiny was about to open its jaws once again. Chapter 17. Eyes Across the Hall. The grand doors swung open, and the room changed. Kalen entered, tall and broad-shouldered, the golden sigil of Moonfang gleaming across his chest plate. Age had sharpened him rather than softened him. The boyish prince she once knew was gone. What remained was a king carved by regret and war. Every eye turned toward him. Every conversation faltered. But Ira didn't look. Not at first. She couldn't. Yet, as the musicians shifted tune and the hall hushed, instinct betrayed her. Her gaze lifted. And then, their eyes met. In the span of a breath, 12 years disappeared. The air thickened. The noise of the crowd faded to nothing. It was just him, the man who had left her bleeding and alone, standing beneath the same moonlight that once blessed their vows. Her chest constricted, her pulse stuttered. He froze mid-step, gaze locked on her as if the world had tilted. She looked the same, and yet not. The fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed. It had changed color, burned colder, sharper. Mother? Lyra whispered beside her. Why is that man staring at you? Era tore her gaze away, her voice barely steady. Because ghosts always recognize what they've lost. Rian and Corin followed her line of sight. Their instincts sharpened, wolves sensing unease. The king's scent reached them, familiar yet foreign, sparking something unspoken in their blood. Across the hall, Kalen's hand trembled around his goblet. He felt it, the pull, the bond he thought had died. It struck through him like lightning. My king, murmured Lord Draven from behind. Are you unwell? Kalen didn't answer. He couldn't tear his eyes from the woman seated among the healers, the woman he'd buried in memory but never in heart. Before he could move, the bell chimed to announce the next toast. Laughter resumed, but Kalen's world remained silent, because across that crowded hall, his Luna was alive, and 3 wolves stood by her side, watching him with eyes that mirrored his own. Chapter 18. The Realization. Later that evening, the corridors outside the hall were quiet. The scent of wine, candle wax, and smoke lingered in the air. Kalen moved through the dim light as if in a trance. His heart beat too fast. His mind refused to believe what his eyes had seen. He turned the corner and stopped. There she was, standing by the moonlit balcony, her cloak draped over her shoulders. Alone. Beautiful. Unforgiving. The words came before thought. Era. She froze. Slowly, she turned to face him. Her expression didn't soften. Her eyes, like shards of silver, met his without mercy. Don't call me that. Then what should I call you? His voice cracked on the edge of disbelief. Lady Mira will do. The formal tone sliced him deeper than any accusation. He took a hesitant step forward. You're alive. Apparently, she said dryly, and so are you. The silence that followed was unbearable. The moonlight poured between them, catching the scars time had carved into both faces. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered. "Why didn't you come back?" she countered. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "You left me to rot, Kaelin. You left your children before they could even open their eyes." His breath hitched. "Children?" Era's lips pressed into a thin line. "You saw them tonight." He blinked, the truth slamming into him. "The three at your side. The ones with—" His voice broke. "They're mine." "Yours," she confirmed, voice low. "And you'll never know how hard I fought to keep them alive while the world forgot us." Kaelin staggered back as though struck. The hall behind them seemed to vanish, only her voice remained, sharp, trembling, real. "I thought you hated me," he murmured. "The council said—" "The council lied," she cut in, eyes blazing. "And you believed them. You always believed them." He looked at her then, truly looked, the strength in her stance, the scars at her wrists, the defiance in her eyes. Every part of her was proof of survival. "I was young," he whispered, afraid. "You were king," she said coldly. "Fear is a luxury you never had the right to keep." The space between them pulsed. Too close, too full of what could never be undone. The old bond stirred, faint but undeniable. Her wolf sensed it too, growling quietly beneath her skin. "What happens now?" he asked finally. Era turned away, cloak swirling around her like night itself. "Now?" She looked over her shoulder, voice calm but burning. "Now you live with what you abandoned." Then she walked past him, graceful, untouchable, unbroken. Her scent lingered, soft and wild, fading down the corridor like a memory that refused to die. Kaelin stood alone, heart pounding. His hand lifted to his chest, where the bond still pulsed faintly, proof that destiny wasn't finished with them yet. And as the moonlight bathed him in cold silver, the truth became a weapon sharper than any blade. The Luna he left behind still lived, and so did his guilt. Chapter 19. The Council Strikes Back. The night before the final day of the summit, the moon hung low and red, heavy with warning. The palace slept uneasily. Somewhere in the west wing, Kaelin stood at the window, eyes lost to the horizon. The wind carried a chill he hadn't felt in years. He'd tried to find peace in Era's return, but peace had never been his fate. Behind him, Ronan entered quietly. "You've been awake all night, my king." Kaelin didn't turn. "I was thinking." "About her?" "About them," he said, "and about the price of believing lies." Before Ronan could reply, a sound shattered the silence, the distant echo of steel against steel. Then another, then screams. The doors burst open. A guard stumbled in, blood on his sleeve. "Your Majesty, the High Council, they've turned on us!" Kaelin's eyes snapped wide. "How many?" "Dozens. They've taken the armory. Lord Draven leads them." The roar that followed shook the hall. "Seal the gates!" Kaelin commanded. "Get the Luna and the heirs to safety." But even as he spoke, explosions of flame lit the sky beyond the window. The enemy was already inside. Meanwhile, across the eastern courtyard, Era and her children were caught in the chaos. The triplets had grown into warriors of their own making, fast, fearless, fierce. "Stay close," Era shouted, drawing her twin blades, the moonlight flashing off silver steel. Lyra's wolf form was already shifting, her eyes glowing gold. Ryan leapt into the fray beside her, while Corin shielded Era's back. Through the smoke and noise, she caught a glimpse of Kaelin across the square. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the past didn't matter. "We fight together," she called. And just like that, 12 years of separation burned away in a single moment of unity. Because of that choice, the tide began to turn. The king and the Luna, once divided by betrayal, now fought side by side, their children between them. the true heirs of Moonfang revealed in battle under the blood-red moon. Chapter 20. The Battle for Moonfang. The palace burned. Flames licked the banners, smoke choked the air, and the clang of steel rang like a storm. The corridors that once echoed with laughter now trembled with war cries. Kaelin cut down one enemy, then another, his sword gleaming crimson. "Push them back!" he bellowed, his voice carrying through the chaos. At his side, Ronan fought like the wolf he once was, loyal to his last breath. But it was Era who moved like fire itself. Her blade sang, swift and precise, her hair loose and silver as the moon's blessing. "Draven!" she shouted, eyes locking onto the traitor across the hall. "This ends tonight," Draven sneered, his robes torn, his dagger slick with blood. "You were never meant to stand beside kings, Luna. You were meant to serve them." Her wolf growled beneath her skin. "I stopped serving the day I was left to die." They clashed, blades sparking. The air trembled with each strike. Behind her, Lyra fought off two guards with claws that glimmered in moonlight, while her brothers guarded Kaelin's flank. At the same time, Kaelin broke through the last of the council's guards and faced Lord Draven himself. "You poisoned my court," Kaelin snarled. "You twisted my trust and destroyed my family." Draven laughed, eyes wild. "You destroyed yourself, King. I only gave you the nudge. Then I'll return it tenfold." The fight that followed was brutal and short. Kaelin's blade struck true, piercing Draven's chest. The traitor gasped, blood staining his lips. "You were never fit to rule," Draven hissed. Kaelin's voice was steel. "No, but now I'll learn from the one who was." He turned, and there stood Ira, her sword dripping, her breath ragged but steady. They looked at one another amid the fire, and something unspoken passed between them. Not forgiveness, not yet, but understanding. The battle raged for hours. But by dawn, Moonfang stood free again. Bodies littered the courtyard. Smoke curled into the pale morning sky. And for the first time in 12 years, the king and Luna stood side by side on the steps of the throne room, equals survivors, parents of the realm reborn in blood and truth. Chapter 21. Truth in the Throne Room. By the time the sun rose, silence returned to Moonfang. The throne room smelled of ash and iron. The golden banners were torn, the marble cracked, but the truth was still standing. Kaelin stood before the gathered survivors, nobles, guards, servants, and healers. His crown was gone, his armor scorched, but his voice, when it came, was steady. "For 12 years, he began, I believed a lie. I believed that my Luna betrayed me. I believed my children were not my own. And because of that belief, I abandoned everything the moon entrusted to me." The hall stayed still. Even the wind seemed to pause at the windows. "The High Council fed me those lies," he continued, gesturing toward the captured traitors. "They turned a king against his queen, a father against his blood. But today the truth stands where deceit once ruled." He turned toward Era, who stood beside their children. "I cannot erase what I did, but I can kneel to the one who never faltered." And then he did. The king of Moonfang, once too proud to bend, dropped to his knees before the woman he had left behind. Gasps filled the chamber. Ronan bowed his head. Even the children froze. Era's eyes shimmered, but her face stayed unreadable. Slowly, she stepped forward. "You kneel not to me, Kaelin," she said softly. "You kneel to the truth, to the family you forgot and the kingdom you almost lost." She turned to the crowd, her voice gaining strength. "Let it be known. I am Era of Moonfang. I am Luna by bond, by blood, and by endurance. And I forgive no man who hides behind power, not even a king." Kaelin looked up at her, his voice breaking. "Then what do I do now?" Her gaze softened. "You lead, but this time you do it beside me." The hall erupted in cheers, raw, cathartic, wild. The people who had doubted now wept. The soldiers who had fought now knelt. Ronan stepped forward, bowing low. Moonfang is whole again. Era turned to her family, her children standing proud, her king humbled, her people united, and for the first time in years she smiled. The moon broke through the shattered roof, spilling silver light across the marble floor. "We are not what they said we were," she whispered. "We are what we became in spite of it." And just like that, the throne that had divided them became the place where they began again. Chapter 22: The Dawn of Peace. By morning, the war was over. Smoke drifted over Moonfang's capital, curling into the pale sky like incense after a funeral. But this time, it wasn't mourning. It was cleansing. The corrupt council lay defeated, their banners burned, their oaths undone, and in the great courtyard the people gathered as Kaelin stepped forward. No longer a king of fear, but a man reborn in truth. His armor was scratched and soot-stained, his hands still marked with blood. But when he spoke, his voice carried peace. "For years," he said, "we ruled with pride, not wisdom. That ends today. The age of deceit has fallen. Moonfang will rise not under one will, but under unity, guided by those who know sacrifice." He turned toward Ronan, standing tall despite the gash on his cheek. "Ronan of Moonfang, once exiled for loyalty, I name you Commander of the Guard, Protector of the royal bloodline, and Shield of the Luna." Ronan knelt, his voice thick. "Then I will die before harm touches them again." Kaelin nodded, then faced the crowd. "As for the future of Moonfang..." He glanced at the three young wolves standing beside Era, Ryan, Corin, and Lyra, their eyes steady, their posture proud. "These are my heirs," he declared, his voice echoing across the square. "Born of courage, not convenience. They will guard this realm together, not as rulers divided by crown, but as guardians bound by blood." The cheers rose like thunder. For the first time in years, hope filled the air instead of fear. Era stood slightly behind him, her expression unreadable. Yet when he turned, she didn't look away. Their eyes met, and in that silent exchange, forgiveness began to grow roots. Beneath the rising sun, the realm of Moonfang stepped into a new dawn, no longer ruled by superstition or shame, but by the strength of those who had survived it. Chapter 23: The Luna's Return. Weeks passed, the snow melted, the wounds of war began to heal. The palace, once scarred by betrayal, echoed again with music, laughter, and the scent of life returning. And through those great golden halls walked Era, not as the ghost who had once fled them, but as the Luna reborn. Her footsteps were slow, deliberate. The servants who had once averted their eyes now bowed in reverence. The air seemed to recognize her, the walls whispering the name they'd once silenced. At the throne room's entrance, Kaelin waited. Gone was the crown. Gone the heavy robes of arrogance. He wore simple clothes, his sword at his side, a man stripped of pretense, waiting not as a king, but as a husband hoping for forgiveness. "You rebuilt the nursery," Era said softly, noticing the open doors behind him. He nodded. "They're grown now, but I wanted it restored. For memory, and for penance." "Penance is not what I seek," she said, turning toward him. "I seek peace." Kaelin stepped closer, the distance between them closing inch by inch. "Then let me earn it," he whispered. "Not with promises. I've made too many, but with days that prove I've changed." She studied him, searching his eyes for the man she'd once loved, and the one who'd broken her. For a long, silent moment, she found both. "You can start," she said at last, "by never walking away again." His breath trembled. Never again. In the weeks that followed, the palace saw quiet miracles. Kaelin tending to the gardens Era once planted, training beside his sons, sharing long, peaceful evenings beneath the moonlight with his daughter's laughter echoing in the distance. There were no grand gestures, no royal decrees, only quiet devotion. Because love, once broken, is rebuilt not in thunder, but in whispers. And so, the Luna returned, not to serve, but to stand. Not to be adored, but to be seen. And this time, she was. Chapter 24. The Moon Reborn. Years passed. The palace aged with grace, the scars of war now softened by vines and light. The kingdom of Moonfang thrived under unity, a legacy of healing instead of conquest. And on the anniversary of peace, the royal family gathered beneath the open sky. The moon hung full and bright, just as it had the night they first met, the night their bond was forged, and the night it was almost destroyed. Ryan stood as commander of the royal guard, his presence steady and proud. Corin, ever the scholar, oversaw the council of healers. Lyra, fierce and wise, led the new generation of warriors, her voice carrying through the ranks like her mother's once had. Ira watched them all with quiet pride. Her silver hair shimmered in the moonlight, her eyes soft but strong. Kalen sat beside her on the stone terrace, his hand resting lightly over hers. "They look like you," he said with a faint smile. She chuckled. "No, they look like who we were supposed to be." Silence settled. Not the uneasy kind, but one born of contentment. The wind carried the scent of pine and the distant howl of wolves. Not cries of war, but songs of home. "You once said the moon cursed us," Kalen murmured. Ira turned toward the sky. "Maybe she was only testing us." "And did we pass?" Her smile was small but sure. "We endured." He exhaled, his voice low. "Then I suppose that's enough." The triplets approached, standing in a circle with their parents. Together, they looked up. One family, one bloodline, under the same moon that had watched them through love, loss, and redemption. "For every wound we healed," Era whispered, "for every night we survived, may the moon remember us kindly." Kalen took her hand, pressing it to his heart. "She already has." The wind stirred the torches around them, scattering petals into the air, gold and silver like falling stars. And as laughter rose from the courtyard below, the camera of fate pulled back, revealing the kingdom reborn, glowing beneath the eternal light. Their story became legend, a tale whispered across generations. The Lycan king who lost everything, the Luna who forgave the impossible, and the family who turned curse into crown. And high above them, the moon shone brighter than ever, silent, silver, and eternal, a witness to love that refused to die.